than linear periodization. Now, how do we implement it? Well, it's not a new or different way of programming, but it's a new and different means of load selection. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, if we look at the traditional periodization setup with a block style a la Mike Stone and Stone and Garhammer, we know that we go with an anatomical adaptation phase, a hypertrophy phase, a strength power phase. Well, instead of looking at various sets and rep schemes and trying to figure out what was appropriate there, all you do is during the weeks of the hypertrophy phase, you do the APRE10. During the weeks of a strength phase, you do APRE6. And during the weeks of the power phases or maximal strength phase, use APRE3. It's that simple. It's not looking at trying to balance out sets, reps, average weight of the bar. Go get it, right? And what do I mean by go get it? Go out there and work hard and do the protocol, and you're going to see good gains. It's not rocket science unless you make it. So some of the finer points are looking at the warm-up sets, the work sets, load changes, and how to change protocols. And these are all things that we need to go over. Again, I said earlier that I was going to go over my warm-up with you. So whenever I was doing the APRE and my work sets were 365. Did I just do 2 warm-up sets to get 365? No. You don't have to do just 2 warm-up sets, but you do have to stay consistent with how you do the warm-up. What do I mean is that you need to make sure that you're doing the same approximate loads and volumes, repetitions at each load to make sure that if you go down one day, it's not because you accumulated too much fatigue in the warm-up or that you didn't do enough warm-up and you weren't potentiated. So what I typically did was I would start out with the barbell for 40 to 60 repetitions. Why? 40 to 60, and actually sometimes it was even up to 100. Now, while I said, hey, you need to be consistent, at the barbell with a 365-pound max, that's 365 pounds for reps, that's like 10% of the bar, 10% of my max. I went just until everything quit hurting, that I would get enough blood flow through there that everything quit hurting. It did not seem to induce fatigue. I was never winded whenever I stood up. Then I would do 95 pounds for 10, 135 pounds for 6, 185 pounds for 6, 225 for 3, 275 for 3, 315 for 3, 335 for 1, and then I would do my 365 for my first work set. I would perform my repetitions there, go to the adjustment chart, and do my second set. And that's what my warm-up was every week. I might adjust the last 335 up a little bit if I was going up to 380 or 390. I might take it to 345 or 355 instead of 335 to get closer to my load that I was going to be doing that day. But we could see that my warm-ups were still very, very consistent. So you don't have to have just the 2 warm-up sets. Consistency is key. As long as you're consistent, you're going to be fine with whatever your personal flavor is on it. Now with the working sets, can you do a different selection other than the standard 2? Of course. One of the things that I like to say is that all of my workouts are written in paper and actually on a computer. So that makes it even easier to make changes in the paper. None of it is ever written in stone. So if I need to change things up, I absolutely do. Make it your own to suit your needs. So some of the things that I've done, whenever I'm first working with a team or I'm dealing with an individual who has a major strength or hypertrophy need, I'll go ahead and start doing 3 sets. Now, for whenever I start working with the team and I'm just trying to figure out where they are, I might only do that for the first 2 to 3 weeks to get them where they need to be. If I do 3 sets for 2 to 3 weeks, well, let's realize that if I can go up off of 3 sets, I can go up 45 pounds. So that would be 90 or 135 pound load increase over 3 weeks. If I only do the squat or that individual lift once a week, if I'm doing it twice a week, I could go up 270 pounds in that period. So definitely, it does not matter where they are. I can match and find exactly, let's say that I started 100 pounds too light. Within a week, I'm exactly where I need to be. If I started 270 pounds too light, within 3 weeks, I'm where I need to be. So let's just realize that. And if somebody, again, is needing major hypertrophy or strength, you can absolutely continue those 3 sets going beyond that. Now, what about, let's say that I've got somebody who is in season. I'm not trying to accumulate a tremendous amount of fatigue, but they are weak and I need to get them stronger. Well, I've had great success with only doing one set, one maximal set, one working set of the APRE for those who are not playing. They still need to get stronger, but you never know when the person in front of them is going to go down. So we can't induce too much fatigue. They are still athletes for their sport rather than power lifters, weightlifters, or bodybuilders. They need to be ready to go for their sport. So we need to make sure that they still have enough energy to practice and gain sports skill. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what they bench press or squat or clean if they're standing on the sideline next to me. We want to make sure that they're playing. So the sports skill needs to be first, and then we'll look at everything else later. Now, load changes. If we look at those load changes, those were on average, and they were given in either pounds or kilograms. Sometimes the adjustment chart may be too high or too low. I like to stay more conservative. You can still make gains whenever you're undertrained, but once you're overtrained, you lose everything that you've got. So your body starts just going into becoming a hormonal wreck. I mention that because I still go with 15 to 20 pounds. I usually won't make an increase of more than 20, although I've had colleagues who would give an increase of, oh, that looks too light, let's go up 50 pounds. Well, there's adjustment charts for a reason. I don't want to get anybody hurt, and I don't want to overshoot anybody and cause mental arousal to really come into play there. One of the really successful things that I've done for the weaker athletes, and a lot of times it's the females and the women's soccer players, I noticed that they responded more favorably to increased volume rather than increased load. So they would still get stronger doing higher repetitions rather than just simply increasing the load as the chart would say. So the example that I often use is because I did APRE 6, trying to get my women's soccer team much stronger. My adjustment chart, normally you have 5 to 7 is stay the same, 8 to 10 is plus 5, 11 to 12 is increased 10, and 13 repetitions was increased 15 pounds. Well, with the women's soccer team, I didn't do that because they weren't that strong. Going at 15 pounds might be 10% of their max. So what I ended up doing was basically 5 to 10 repetitions. They stayed the same. 11 to 13, they increased at 5 to 10 pounds, and it was their decision of what they did. There was less intimidation over the weight, but they were still progressing. There was still progressive overload there, but they were accumulating more volume, still with a progressive overload, and they just got better. Now, to me, I didn't care if it was the volume that made them stronger, more resilient, more robust, or the intensity. I didn't care which one it was. So as long as there was progressive overload, it was still fine. And the intimidation over the weight, I think, is something that we have to really take into account. A story that I like to tell over and over and over again, and those who've seen me speak may well have heard this story or heard me on a podcast, what have you, that I had a hammer thrower from the UK who had never lifted weights before. Now, the first 3 weeks of the semester, I was out because my first daughter was born. She was in there training, and having never lifted weights before, training with the regular throwers program, she was burning out. It was too much intensity, too much volume. She didn't know what to do. Whenever I came back, the throws coach sat me down and was like, hey, we're probably going to end up pulling this kid from the weight room. Just to give you a heads up, she's frying out. It's not a good situation for her, and I want her to be able to throw and not worry about going back to the UK. she may, it looks like from what some people are saying, she might be headed that route. I'm like, oh, coach, just let me talk to her and let's go from there. So I told her, hey, give me 3 weeks. Okay, give me 3 weeks. Don't quit. Just give me 3 weeks. We switched over to simply doing one set of 20 repetitions. And if she could do 20 repetitions, we went up 5 pounds. The first workout, she got pinned by 95 pounds on the third repetition on squat. We took it down to 85 pounds and she could do 20. We were progressing because she had a light weight. She thought, hey, this isn't heavy. I can do 20 repetitions. That semester, she ended up, and we did the same exercises 3 times a week. And every time she got 20, we went up 5 pounds for the next workout if she thought she could do that. So then we ended up going up to 185 pounds for 20 repetitions that semester. 13 weeks later, she was not intimidated over the weight. She still progressed. And that's the important thing, is progressive overload.